This is the Reality Radio Network on Telstar 5 Transponder 5 and on the internet at realityradionetwork.com.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Q-Files. In order to maximize the maximum amount of time for my special guest, Tom Horn, we're going right into the show. This is the 30th of June. The year, obviously, is 2009, and this is the second to the last broadcast. Tomorrow's broadcast will most likely be with Henry Groover instead of Hawk. I want all Christians to be praying for Hawk. He's in the hospital right now. They don't know to the degree he had a stroke, but I would like to ask all of you to pray for him and pray against the psychic warfare and the devils that have basically zapped him with something. He was speaking to me earlier today about what happened to him during the show last night. Interestingly, about the same time they took me off the air for the 5 minutes or whatever, but a helicopter flew over, and he said he heard the strangest noise, not like any helicopter he'd ever heard. After that, he started getting very ill, and at this point, he is in the hospital. They're running all types of scans. His speech is slurred, and he's very, 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 how should I say this, out of commission for the time being. If you would pray for him, I would appreciate it, and if I do get a chance to do one more show, and that's even doubtful now, the point is that I would like you to understand some of the prices that some of these men and women of God have prayed in order for you to be able to hear this broadcast. And contrary to all the skeptics and everything, the idea is you've been given truth. Well, my special guest is Tom Horn tonight. Tom, welcome, and let's talk about your new book, and let's get right to the heart of the matter and the Great Seal, if that's where you would like to go first.
Well, Steve, first of all, let me say what a privilege it is to be on your show again. Thank you for inviting me on, and we will be praying that Christ will bless and heal Hawk of whatever this physical or spiritual or both attack is. And, Steve, because I know that you're going to be ceasing this radio show, I also want to say on behalf of myself and hundreds of thousands of others over the years, I want to express how much your radio show has meant to me. And, Steve, I mean this sincerely, how much you yourself and your bravery to speak out on so many pertinent issues of the hour has been the example to researchers, broadcasters, authors, others like myself, and, of course, we will continue to follow where you go from here, at least as much as any of us have hours remaining to combat the darkness. I'm very suspicious about this helicopter.
Well, again, Tom, it was important. You need to know, ladies and gentlemen, I asked that Tom would be one of my last guests. The last guest. If Hawk and I don't do the show, there's a chance we'll have Henry Groover on, and Henry's going to talk about, Tom, his visions of heaven. And I have it in my spirit that that's how the Lord wants me to leave it with my audience, because again, you cannot doubt the, if you will, the availability of the revelation that's going to be necessary for God's people to have, that we're just passing through, and as it gets very dark, we have a home. As Abraham, he knew that he was looking for the city whose builder and maker was God. Let's talk about your new book. What is the title of it?
Apollyon Rising 2012, and it has a very long subtitle, The Lost Symbol Found and the Final Mystery of the Great Seal Revealed. And then even below that, there's another subtitle. It was pretty hard for us to try to figure out how to say what we wanted to be able to say, because, Steve, unlike, this is truly, honestly, before God, unlike anything I've ever done before. You know, in the past, I wrote books because I like to write, and there's nothing wrong with that as an author. But this was something that, knowledge that came to me, that was made available to me, and which itself compelled me to have to be able to write this, and also to have to get a quick scholarship in certain things about American history that required me, as you already know, to travel all over the United States for the last 18 months, meeting with different kinds of authorities to make sure that anything that I would say about this would be correct. And Steve, not to put too much of an otherworldly spin on it, but some of this stuff I'd been wrestling with for years, trying to make sense, you know, out of certain images, things that had to do with American history. But frankly, I'd never taken the time to actually learn anything about it. And then literally a bit over a year ago, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I literally sat straight up in bed. This was during REM sleep, when night visions occur, and a very, very vivid dream came to me, and these pieces suddenly fell together, and I sat up, and I jumped out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, grabbed paper, and I started writing down as fast as I could what had come to me, and then I spent a significant amount of time verifying that this, if you want to call it a vision, that this information was correct. As you know, Steve, I'd been involved with religious institutions for more than 30 years, including as an executive in the largest evangelical organization in the world. And during that time, I'd been on international television. I'd been on international radio programs. I had an opportunity to expand my presence, and I'm saying this very much tongue-in-cheek, because between me and you, we will get it, but I was a big deal, right?
Right.
But it wasn't until a brief stint when I had been working with exorcisms that one day I came face to face with something that was entirely supernatural, completely beyond my ability to comprehend it. And it was during that time, this is years ago, that some of the very people that I had been mocking as conspiratorial started turning out in my mind to have been really closer to understanding the truth than I ever had. Well, specifically, for want of a better term, I began realizing that my naivety, my arrogance, my blind acceptance, whatever, especially of various controlled versions of American history, had been keeping me in the dark. I was what Chris Tinto would probably call a patriotic Christian, and there's no derision in that. What he means by that is, it's one thing to be patriotic, it's another thing to be entirely blind and to lack the ability to critically review the true history of your nation, because if you don't, you can be literally blinded from the actual course that a network of hidden powers had set our nation upon more than 200 years ago. And Steve, I'll say here in the beginning that it's true, in my opinion, that numerous of the founding fathers, as well as numbers of families and patriots from Plymouth Rock, that settled this country, the United States, that they were Christians. And I wouldn't want anybody hearing this interview to think that I believe otherwise, but it is also honest, and it takes bravery to accept and to acknowledge, and this was the conversion process I went through for the last few years, what even Freemasons like Manly P. Hall and others have admitted was the unseen hand of the Order of the Quest in American history, which we'll be talking about tonight, having to do with the secret destiny of America, that began officially in 1776, but of course, as you know, was set in motion years before that, and which, more importantly, now, Steve, I believe, has brought America and the world to an ordo ab chaos, the ancient craft Masonic doctrine of order out of chaos, and especially for the purpose of establishing a new world order. That's where we are today.
Well, given the fact, too, Tom, that the stuff that you've written about specifically and all the things that kind of we've been on parallel roads, but now those roads are converging, and this is it. This is the big play. This is the grand play of the occultists of all the centuries, if you will, of all of the eons to bring this point, or to bring this country down and bring us to this new world order and this absolutely order out of chaos. Is that correct? Well,
that's true, and for people like me and you, it's also biblically prophetic. I guess the point that I was going to make, and I don't want to get bogged down on this, but as a pastor for nearly 25 years, I had accumulated a certain interest in the role that these secret orders might have played in towards a final world order, especially, as it mirrored the rise of the Antichrist and related biblical eschatology. But really, for the most part, my interest back then in the illuminated or satanic orders, which have been carefully plotting toward global domination for a very long time, whether people will buy that or not, back then, for me, was really, kind of a cursory research matter, if you will. But then it was during the Bush administration, and you and I have talked about this in the past, and I won't repeat it, that certain pieces of the puzzle seemed to start falling into place about 10 years ago, and especially has been ratcheted up through both of those, Bush Sr., both the terms of his son, and now with the Obama administration. I mean, I'm talking about world affairs, changes to U.S. domestic and foreign policy, a renewed focus on the Middle East, Israel, Iran, Iraq, Babylon, and now what we are seeing as the engineered collapse of the global economy, and all of this stuff that's been cascading onto the world seen the last decade. When you look at that and then you combine it with the words and deeds and gestures and coded language of the world's most powerful men, I mean, it all clearly appears to be pointing to an ancient, prophetic, cryptic reality. And just so you know, Steve, where I'm going with this research, and which will be fantastically revealed, I got to tell you, and even graphically illustrated in this new book, Apollyon Rising